Okay, just getting back up and running here. Okay, so we're just getting up and running here, but obviously the news expected, but still um, not what we wanted to hear. Charlie Kirk has been assassinated in at Utah Valley University in Utah. We have a some mixed information coming in. At last report, a suspect is not, repeat, is not in custody. Uh, the earlier reports of a suspect in custody were true, but it was not the shooter. The shooter at this moment is still at large. So there are some reports of some SWAT team activity on the Utah Valley campus, but again, at this moment, the shooter remains at large. Shooter remains at large. Uh, the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. We have information pouring in. I stopped the stream earlier because we were getting a lull, and I imagined that was because things were starting to clamp down both on the law enforcement side and the side of Kirk's representatives. I said that it looked very grave after witnessing the video of the shooting. It looked. Uh, hang on just a second. Apologies about that. Kirk was speaking at the event, one of his Turning Point USA events, the Prove Me Wrongs, as you see on the banner there. This is an image from one of the videos that captured his assassination. I will not show the video. I am disgusted by it. I've seen many shootings videos that are just horrifying. They're always horrifying. Um, I don't wish that on anybody, but there's a part of me that says people need to see it. People on both sides of gun violence and mass shooting debates. I hate sanitizing the news. I hate not making people realize the ugliness of this. Um, Maybe people would think differently, regardless of their view, if they saw how this happens. Um, Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment. We're monitoring several news outlets right now, but the news coming out, Charlie Kirk has died from his injuries. He was shot in the neck or upper chest. It appeared to be one shot. Uh, there was a report by CNN that uh, agents believe that the shot may have happened from a building more than 200 yards away. Uh, if that's the case, that is a significant distance that would require quite the sharpshooter. Um, there remains a massive police presence, tactical presence on Utah Valley University's campus as the search for the shooter continues. I imagine they've identified the position of the shooter. Obviously, you can figure that out from forensics real quick. But whether or not they have a beat on the shooter or even who they are, who they might be, we don't know. Um, Now, I'm going to be very clear here. I'm a journalist. I hate to speculate on anything. That's why I tried not to assume that this was a fatal shooting. Um, and I'm going to try and avoid reports that are false. That doesn't mean I'm going to get it right. We were reporting earlier that law enforcement said they had someone in custody, which they did. What we didn't know is that it wasn't the shooter, and that person has since been released. But the breaking news: Charlie Kirk was assassinated during a "Prove Me Wrong" event at Utah Valley University. The video is graphic. The video is gruesome. Um, but that's what these shootings are. That's what mass shootings and assassinations are. These are powerful weapons, and they are designed to inflict maximum carnage on the human body. Um, people who abhor these guns call them weapons of war, and it's true. When you see what they do, they are weapons of war. I'm not saying whether or not they need to be regulated or not, but what they do and what they did to Charlie Kirk today is horrifying. I don't see how he would have ever survived this. Any medical intervention would have saved him, and it's disgusting. I've been covering politics for decades here in Iowa. We had Charlie Kirk visit the University of Iowa not that long ago here. And as I recall, I actually raised the question of whether or not we should go. There was a part of me that wanted to go because he is a high profile conservative firebrand, but there's another part of me that says, he is also very divisive and polarizing, and are we really adding anything to the discussion by being there and possibly talking to him? Ultimately, my boss's decision was we weren't going to go because it was pretty late for our deadline, and also because there was a serious concern of violence. And there's always a concern of violence at a Charlie Kirk event, not necessarily shooting, but mass protests and disruptive demonstrations and the like. And that's what he was fueled off of, was going to college campuses and taking on people who didn't share his views. That was the whole point of him creating Turning Point USA when he was a teenager. Charlie Kirk was just 31, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that for as long as he's been in the national discourse. But one of the biggest figures on the conservative side, a usually strong supporter of President Trump and Trump's ascension to the top of the Republican Party in 2016, only added to the stature of people like Charlie Kirk. He was the most consequential voice for the Republicans and the conservative movement when it came to attracting younger voters. That is a major loss for the party and for their movement. And I wonder now, as an American, my fear is what comes out of this, because obviously, like every assassination or assassination attempt, every mass shooting, there's going to be the discussion about guns and mental health and political discourse. But what are people in power going to do? Generally, nothing. But obviously, there is going to be a faction within the Republican Party that is going to consider this, and actually, one pundit already said it, a declaration of war on conservatives. That should not be how this is taken. That should not be the reaction, and that should not be where we foment action, I don't believe, because all that's going to do is raise the temperature. And those who are not willing to act in good faith or reason on both sides are going to be driven more to horrendous things like this. Now, obviously, officially, we don't have a motive yet. We don't even have a suspect. Everyone is speculating and assuming, and we all know what happens when you assume. But obviously, if you don't want to assume, many are playing the probabilities right now of what was the motive behind this shooting. Bear with me here as I'm keeping an eye on our favorite sources. Obviously, one I've said a million times, one of my favorite to go to is CBS News. I think they're one of the more level-headed and unbiased sources. President Trump confirming the news that Charlie Kirk is dead. Undoubtedly, law enforcement, now with the aid of the FBI, is going over all civilian video, all closed-circuit video of the area to try and identify a shooter. To try and determine who the shooter was, where they might have gone after the shooting, or were they spotted on camera before the shooting. The shooting took place as Kirk was responding to a question about mass shootings. I see some of you sharing your comments, and yes, this is a huge loss for the conservative movement. It is no gain for any other movement. It is a layer of it's disgusting. And with the exception of the extremes on the right and left, the reaction has been exactly what you would expect, and it would be exactly what you want. Everybody is disgusted by this. And this was someone who didn't seem deterred by it. Kirk turned down offers to run for office or to assume roles of leadership because he said he liked doing events like this. Now he had his own private security, and it was his private security that reached him first and rushed him to treatment. But you know, when you're going to have open air events like this, there is no safety. He is not a president. He is not a leader of any major group. So the fact that this happened on a college campus is not lost on me because this is where some of the most horrendous acts of violence have occurred in our history. Um, from the violence during the anti Vietnam Wars, the civil rights movements, the mass shootings in recent years, college campuses have become a focal point of this. Uh, CBS News is showing the floor of the House right now where they're holding a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. All members are in attendance, both sides of the aisle, at least those that are in Washington at this time. Um, so, reaction from those that we turn to in times like this is universal. But we don't know what will happen in the days and weeks ahead in terms of people's anger, uh, calls for retribution, calls for action. And we don't know what our leaders will be. If you have any questions, comments, please share them in the comment section. We'll try to get those. I'm here in Iowa. I can tell you, Rob Sand, who's running for Iowa governor, the only Democrat to win statewide office in recent years, just released a statement saying whether it was the assassination in Minneapolis earlier this summer or the shooting today, I'm disgusted by the escalation of political violence across our country. This cannot be the new norm. We must come together to reform the broken political system that has brought us here. Certainly something that I can the sentiment I can understand, because broken political system in one way, shape, or form is what's brought us here. Not just the lack of action on violence, but also the violent rhetoric that is used by many in the political theater these days. We are working to get some more sources up here for you, but we're monitoring CBS News. The news, not surprising after the video we saw, that Charlie Kirk has died after he was shot in the neck from what appeared to be a long-range weapon, some type of rifle, just based on the video. Happy to answer any questions any of you may or may not have. Just working to get some more materials here up on the screen for you. We are a small but mighty operation here, so we appreciate you joining us. As normally we're focused on matters pertaining to Iowa politics and Iowa weather, but this is far too significant. Certainly far too significant. Um, boy, you hate to see this, but obviously it's hard to think that anybody is surprised by it. Um, you know, if there's nothing more of a dichotomy, and maybe this is just because of what I follow, and I try and follow a lot of different things, is the difference of opinion and rhetoric kind of falling by the wayside at moments like this. And just look at this from my feed. You see posts from before the news that Kirk had died, from Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom to right wing extremist Nick Fuentes. Um, Governor Newsom saying that this is disgusting, vile, and reprehensible. Fuentes saying this feels like a nightmare. Um, this violence and hatred has to stop. Our country needs Christ now more than ever. Fuentes is a far right nationalist. Uh, Obviously, many believe his views to be one of white supremacy as well. Um, None of that right now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, next to likely next New York Mayor Zohan Mamdani, uh, both abhorring what's happened in Utah today. Unfortunately, it's things like this that get us as close as we can to political unity in this country. I wish it wasn't so, but uh, that is unfortunately the world that we live in today. Again, this was The View just moments before Kirk was shot fatally in the neck. The video is extremely disturbing. There are other videos as well that are just immensely graphic. I was very disturbed by it. I don't wish anyone to see it, but sometimes as a journalist, I feel people must see it, because when you see what these weapons can do, it makes you rethink either the actions and inactions we're taking or the lack of basic conversation we're having about a critical issue in our country. And that is where the conversation is going right now in this country, is the political debate has now led to another assassination. Thanks for the comment, Denise. And thanks everyone for joining us. We're not a big organization. I'm just a former journalist sitting in my basement, disgusted at what's happened today. Um, I've spoken to a lot of politicians over the years, a lot of political figures over the years, all of which said things that I liked, said things I didn't like, said things that disgusted me, said things that made me want to try and help. But it never changed my view of them as a human being. And maybe that was a fortunate thing about being able to speak to politicians one on one with the cameras off and the event and no event, is you got to see the person. And you know, for many, maybe it, you know, I don't want to judge anybody's political views. Maybe it's an act for prosperity, but maybe it's, and hopefully it's what they truly believe. But 99% of the people, whether you believe them or not, are genuinely good people behind the scenes. And they're just, I have never met Charlie Kirk, and I don't know what his intentions were, but I have no doubt that he was genuine in his beliefs, and was a person who felt obligated to act upon it. I chose a different route. I chose to cover it. I chose to try and get answers from people in power not that I wanted to hear, but I felt that the people needed to hear, whether they agreed with it or not. And some of my favorite interviews were with people with highly controversial views, people that I may personally have disagreed with, and some of which I had no problem behind the scenes telling them, I disagree. I really disagree with you. However, I believe what you're saying is what you believe to be true, and I believe that you see the good in it. And many, fortunately, that I spoke to could. Um, Charlie Kirk, though, has thrived in an arena where we are not debating. What we call debate nowadays doesn't seem to be debate. And I've watched a lot of people like Charlie Kirk on the right, Destiny on the left, and all of these others. And what drives me nuts is that when they're asked a question, when it's their turn to answer, they will start by asking the questioner a question. I hate that. As a journalist, I hate that because I'm not here to answer a question, you are. But it's a very effective strategy. You kind of turn the question on its head, or you try and deflect the question by claiming it's biased rather than just simply answering it. And that has become an effective way of debating without debating and making people think that even if they might not agree with you, that you are the rational one. And that is something that Kirk has used very effectively, just as others on the left have as well. And as a journalist, I feel what the problem with that is it doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't get us anywhere closer to a consensus. It gets us closer to making those who already agree with you angry. And when people who already agree with you get angry, they're more interested in either giving you money or taking action on your behalf and promoting your views. Obviously, that's something politically you want to have happen. But in this day and age, that doesn't lead to actual action among our leaders. So people like Charlie Kirk, people like Destiny, Brian Tyler Cohen, and others, they're not part of the solution, but they're essentially the people we've turned to now as leaders of the discourse. And Kirk was arguably one of the loudest and most influential voices, and it is what has now gotten him killed. We don't know why yet. Obviously, there's going to be a reasonable assumption here as to why. But that will all come out. The main concern right now is who did this? And we don't have an answer. The suspect is still at large. Seemingly, they have either managed to hide or escape or evade capture in the chaos that followed the shooting. We don't know for sure, but obviously based on the video that I've seen and based on a lot of the other reports that are coming in that appear to be credible, this person shot from a great distance. And so that would leave the assumption that this was a rifle and a sharpshooter. One shot is all that was fired. One shot. Charlie Kirk, as many have pointed out, was adamant about gun rights, even saying in an interview less than 2 years ago that a certain number of deaths can be expected in a society that protects the right to bear arms, that protects the Second Amendment. And he very controversially labeled that as acceptable deaths. And today he has become a victim of what he once called those acceptable deaths. And I don't think anybody for a second should think that if Charlie Kirk survived this shooting, that his views would change. Sometimes people believe what they believe, and they actually believe it. And something terrible happening to them isn't going to change that. For instance, Steve Scalise, one of the Republican leaders in the House, almost died from an attempted assassination on a softball field. And he survived, and many people wondered if he would change his views on some of the more agreeable gun restrictions like gun registrations and tracking and things like that, and not one bit. So I don't believe anyone should expect any action or legislation to come out of this. My personal fear as a journalist who's covered this for some time is the reaction of political leaders and those who listen to them. Right now, and appropriately so, the reaction to this is universal and united, with the exception of the non-leader crazies on the left and the right. We want it to stay that way. I have no faith that it will, but for now at least, the focus is where it needs to be. We are monitoring several news outlets right now for updates. Witnesses are just beginning to speak out and share what they viewed. But again, many even on the left are saying, regardless of my views of Charlie Kirk, he was murdered for having a respectful discussion with people that he disagreed with. And I think, regardless of what you think about Charlie Kirk, and because of his tactics, I certainly was not a fan of his as a political figure. You certainly respect anybody that will put themselves out there and defend what they believe. You can't say that about all leaders and all politicians. And because he was so effective of it at such a young age, one could say that he may have played one of the most important roles in Donald Trump's election in 2016, because Charlie Kirk, creating Turning Point as a teenager and running it up until today, dead at the age of 31. I don't think people would believe how young he was because of how long he's been in the political arena. But at just 31, he had an immense influence on the Republican Party, and got that by bringing young voters into a party that had struggled with youth for some time. Just seeing a response from Iowa Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, who's now a candidate for Senate, saying, after today's horrific shooting, I was praying for a miracle and I'm heartbroken that Charlie Kirk has passed away. Charlie was passionate and charismatic, dedicating his life to engaging with young people. I am devastated for his wife, Erica, and 2 children, and will be keeping them in my prayers and close to my heart as they grieve. There is no place for political violence in America. This has to stop now. That coming from Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. Congresswoman Hinson, they're mentioning Kirk's family. Charlie Kirk and his wife Erica had been married for 4 years. Again, they had 2 kids. By all accounts, he was really just starting his family. 31 years old. And I'm not here to defend the things that he said or support the things that he said, but it is likely we're going to find out that he died because of the things that he said. And the next question is, where do we go from here? I don't have an answer because we've been here before, haven't we? We've been here a lot. We were just here not that long ago in Minnesota. We were here with Gabby Giffords. We were here with Steve Scalise. And here we are again. This is something that I think everybody feared would happen and knew could happen. Apologies here, just Just getting some new information here. Ironically, not long after this news broke, there was another shooting at a Denver area high school. Two authorities, or excuse me, at least two students reportedly shot. President Trump calling him legendary and said no one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. That coming from President Trump about an hour ago. The debate that he was in the middle of when this happened, according to video before the shooting, somebody in the audience said, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?" To which Kirk said, "Too many." That same audience member told him it was 5, and then asked Kirk if he knew how many mass shooters there had been over that same period of time. Kirk said, "Counting or not counting gang violence," when he was shot. Somebody posting that saying that the answer is 5,700 mass shootings over the last 10 years. Now, this is not a mass shooting, of course. This is a political assassination, I think, would be the best way to describe this. I don't think anybody would dispute that this was a political assassination. Again, if you're just popping on, and we've had a lot of people pop in and out, and I very, very much appreciate it. Charlie Kirk, the right-wing conservative pundit and founder of Turning Point USA, was shot and assassinated today on the the Utah Valley University campus in Utah. He was shot in the neck. The video is abhorrent and graphic, and likely immediately fatal. It is just awful. I've covered politics now for 25 years. I absolutely loved covering candidates, covering the Iowa caucuses, for instance, here in Iowa. And our country has a long and horrid history with political assassinations. And in this era, it's not just leaders that are in danger, it is pundits, because pundits, more often than not nowadays, with the fracturing of media, have more of an influence than the leaders that we see in traditional avenues. And unfortunately, that is what's happened today. Again, if you have any questions or you just want to share your comments, feel free to share those in the comments section. I'm not making any other plugs today. It's just the data feels sick, basically, I think is the best way to put it. The data feels sick. Again, Charlie Kirk was 31 years old. It's been more than a decade since he created Turning Point USA, I believe. He was a college student, college dropout that moved on to this, and he turned it into a hell of a career. And to say that whether you agreed with him or not, you can't deny his influence. His influence on the Republican Party, his influence on the elections, especially those that got Trump elected, his influence on the country as a result. Charlie Kirk was a critical component of the conservative movement of the last 15 years. Seeing more people comment. Somebody here locally I know who's an LGBTQ activist, just simply saying none of it's okay. None of it. There was a report earlier from law enforcement that an individual was in custody, many people shooting video of it. That person is not the shooter, They have been released. It certainly appears as though the shot may have been fired from a great distance. And actually, we were just getting a comment, former President Barack Obama now weighing in. President Obama, let me see if I can, bear with me here. There you see President Obama. We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children. And yeah, we don't know why this happened. We are all making an assumption, but we will let authorities confirm that for us. The problem now is they don't even have a suspect in custody, as far as we're aware. The shooter, remains at large. We don't know who it is. We don't know their motivation. Obviously, we can jump to a conclusion on this one. And we also don't know what their next moves were, because it's clear that they planned this. They orchestrated it. They even took the shot when he was talking about mass shootings. And now they are at large. If the shot was fired from the area that many people believe it was shot from, this was an expert. This was somebody who knew what they were doing. And so one can only conclude that this is somebody who knew how to escape as well. So it is really going to be on eyewitness video, closed caption video, closed circuit video, I should say, that might be able to detail who it was, particularly if they did this from a campus building that would at least have video footage with the ability to show who was going in and out before and after. But again, the suspect right now remains at large. There is no sign of the shooter. There has been immense SWAT team activity on the campus, according to footage that we've seen news outlets sharing. But before the news came out, Glenn Beck was on Megyn Kelly's show saying that his daughter, Glenn Beck's daughter, was at the tent when it happened. And witnessed what happened. One eyewitness telling CBS News, as we mentioned, Kirk was answering a question about transgendered gun violence and then mass shootings in general when he was shot, saying, quote, "There was just blood pouring out everywhere and his eyes kind of rolled back. It was one pop and we all dropped to the ground." I'm no medical or ballistics expert, but I genuinely don't think that there was anything that could have been done to save Charlie Kirk. I believe I don't think he may have even really known what happened to him, and maybe that's a bit of solace, because obviously when heinous things like this happen, and when we see the horrible images, the first thing that naturally pops into somebody's mind is, what if that were me? What would have gone through my head? FBI Director Kash Patel commenting briefly, we're aware of the situation. Oh, I'm sorry, this is about the other shooting that's happening today. Kash Patel did say earlier that the FBI is assisting or coordinating as need be with the investigation in Utah. They're also on scene of a shooting at a Denver school. The last I heard was that 2 students had been shot. Perhaps that is not the case anymore. Perhaps it is more serious now. Unfortunately, that's 3 students, it sounds like now. 3 students are in critical condition after a shooting at Evergreen High School in Evergreen, Colorado. They're now working to clear room by room, and no suspects are in custody. So the FBI now working on a school shooting in Colorado and the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. And that's a Wednesday in America. You know, you can debate whether or not something needs to be done about it or what needs to be done about it, but you cannot ignore the fact that this is America, whether it's mental health or anger or political differences or a difference of opinion on a sporting event. There are people with access to guns that will take action such as this. And for now, our country has decided that we have, if anything, we have too many gun laws on the books as we continue to deregulate the industry. And that's the path we've chosen. Now, whether that's the right one, I don't know. But it's clear that this is a uniquely American problem. And we have elections frequently enough that if this was as important as people says it is, and there was a consensus around something to do about it, maybe we would do something about it. We also like to blame mental health. We won't know if that had any part in this today, but mental health is also something we label as a cause, and I'm not really sure what, if anything, we as a nation have done about that either. So I'm not sure what that says about all of us, because it doesn't feel very good to me right now. Things are beginning to quiet down again following the news that Charlie Kirk has been pronounced dead. Many now expressing Ezra Klein, who is a extremely loud voice in the calling out the dangers of political polarization, tweeted something I think is quite substantial, saying in the last few years we've seen a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the storming of the Capitol and pipe bombs left at the RNC and DNC, the break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the brutal assault on Paul Pelosi, multiple assassination attempts against Trump, the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shooting of a state senator and his wife, Luigi Mangione's assassination of Brian Thompson, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Political violence is contagious, it is spreading, it is not confined to one side or belief system. It should terrify us all. The foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in it without fear of violence. Political violence is always an attack against us all. You have to be so blind not to see that. Again, I don't think anybody can and should argue against that. Political violence today was against a conservative. But in just a couple of years, it's been against people of all political ideologies. It's not the politics causing the violence. It's the anger fomented by those stoking the flames with no action. People living paycheck to paycheck under President Obama. More of them lived under paycheck to paycheck under President Trump. More lived under it under President Biden, and now more under President Trump again. We are not dealing with our problems, especially our big ones. Somebody like Charlie Kirk believed he had the answer, and he had all the answers. And that's okay. Charlie Kirk was a political pundit. He was a spokesperson. He was an advocate. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a leader. I think today many of our problems are associated with leaders taking on that mentality of I need to get everything. I need to win on everything. And it's led to historic inaction by our government. We haven't solved anything on gun violence. We haven't solved anything on the economy. We haven't solved anything on education, on public health. We haven't solved anything on the cost of healthcare. You know, these are big issues and issues that affect everybody. And we keep hearing they're always the biggest topics in an election. And really all that means is the party in power is going to lose power. And it just has become cyclical. You know, it was what, 40 plus years of at least one chamber of Congress being controlled by Democrats until 1995. And ever since then, it's been kind of one or the other. We have not had as many split congressional sessions as we had in the past, and I think it's because of inaction. I don't know. Maybe none of this makes sense. Certainly the actions in Utah today don't, but moments like this are what cause us to just start to reflect on everything. It's certainly something that covering politics I did after every election, after every campaign, is once the people have spoken, you kind of look at the situation in a new light because you have to look at it from the majority's light. And that's where we are today. Looking to see if there's any other information coming out. Not seeing much at this time. James Blair, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, saying Charlie was a good man, always there when you needed him, was never even a question. It's a sad day in our country. Max Rose, of former New York Congressman Max Rose, a Democrat, saying that what we just witnessed is the assassination of a movement leader. Obviously, just scanning the social media posts, a lot of it is ugly, as is to be expected. Congresswoman Marinette Miller Meeks posting today, a loving wife lost her husband, two beautiful children, lost a loving father, and our country lost one of its strongest voices. Charlie was a patriot who loved his country and led with dignity and faith. His passion for open dialogue, I'll put that up there, his passion for open dialogue and his commitment to America's future inspired millions. The horrific act of political violence is not only an attack on Charlie, but on the very principles of free speech and democracy. The attack is heartbreaking, and political violence is unacceptable. We grieve with his family, his friends, and all who look to him for leadership and truth. May his memory be a blessing, and may we honor his legacy by rejecting hate and recommitting ourselves to civility and peace. That, again, coming from Congresswoman Marinette Miller Meeks. people are posting all kinds of stuff about a shooter description. I am not aware of anything relevant in that that's worth reporting. Governor J.B. Pritzker saying, quote, political violence unfortunately has ramped up in this country. I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. That is an accusation the president has heard for some time. And perhaps it's true, but today it likely wasn't. We don't know. But now that the shock is weighing off, the anger is beginning to kick in. And my worry, as somebody who tries to find the good in politics because we need it, is my worry is that that will lead us down an unpleasant road for everybody. And I don't think that's what anybody wants. I may actually try and pull this up. David Pakman, who is a very well respected liberal voice. Now, I believe this was posted before word got out that Charlie Kirk had in fact passed away. But Pakman is somebody who I believe has debated him many times. So I'm curious what he said here. Okay, so again, that was posted before both Kirk had passed away, and we learned that the shooter was actually here's an updated video. The shooter was not in custody. Let's listen to this. Okay, and yeah, we know now that that was not the shooter. Um, there is nobody in custody at this time that we're aware of. Okay, so that was David Pakman. He's a liberal pundit online, very successful, who has debated Kirk many times. So that's where we sit. That's where we sit right now. Not much else coming out right now. We are really just waiting to see of what comes out of this. Before we go, I do want to share one more comment I just came across. This is my former colleague, Caroline Cummings. When I was a journalist here in Cedar Rapids, she was our Iowa State House reporter. She's now the State House reporter in Minnesota, and unfortunately was covering the assassination of the speaker emeritus there, or the former speaker there. She has this statement from State Senator John Hoffman. He was the other lawmaker who was shot several times in that terrible event. He and his wife survived. And this is the statement that he's released, saying, quote, "America is broken and political violence endangers our lives and democracy. The assassination of Charlie Kirk today is only the latest act that our country cannot continue to accept. Our leaders of both parties must not only tone down their own rhetoric, but they must begin to call out extreme, aggressive, and violent dialogue that foments these attacks on our republic and freedom. We also call on leaders of both parties to take immediate action to prevent gun violence. Our prayers are with the Kirk family, our state, and our country." That from State Senator John Hoffman, who himself was shot several times by an attempted assassin just back in June. I couldn't think of anybody else that deserves to be heard at a time like this right now. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to thank everybody for popping on and listening to my ramblings. It's kind of hard to figure out what to say. Divisive people put themselves out there, whether it's for power, money, or to just do what they believe is right. And I'm not gonna pass judgment on which one of those was Charlie Kirk, but I have no reason to believe he wasn't genuine. He and nobody else deserves to die for that. Deserves to die for speaking up, whether you like what they have to say or not. I'm a big fan of John Adams. I learned about him in David McCullough's book, and of course the miniseries based on the book that Tom Hanks did. And one of my favorite lines of John Adams is that we're a nation of laws, not men. It's something I think about a lot these days, as we're seeing a lot of unilateral actions coming out of this White House, and it's something that was pervasive in prior White Houses, just not to this extent. But it's also true when we talk about this kind of action. Assassination, by all accounts, is almost always an act of vigilation, or a vigilante, and that's not how a country moves forward. A country can only move forward if its leaders take the emotion and take the partisanship out of it and do what's right. They don't always do that, obviously. You know, America has not succeeded for 250 years only by doing what's right. We've made a lot of mistakes. The point is, this is not how you fix mistakes, and this is not how you fix problems. No one is going to see Charlie Kirk get assassinated and say, maybe I shouldn't support Donald Trump and his policies. Nobody is going to see the assassination of Charlie Kirk, or should think that they're more right than people who agree with him, because look, it got him shot. That's not how you move forward. That's not how you move forward. So obviously this is going to turn into one of the stories of the year for some time. And if there's interest, we'll certainly be following it. For now, though, I think we'll wrap it up. Again, right now, the breaking news: Charlie Kirk, conservative pundit, creator of Turning Point USA, dead at the age of 31. from an assassin's bullet shot while speaking to college students at Utah Valley University. So thanks for joining us, and hope you join us in the future.